Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm your friendly neighborhood chair, Chris Trumbauer, and happy to call this meeting to order. You can see the agenda on the screen, which we're going to stick pretty closely to. However, we have a special guest with us today, so I'm going to start the meeting by immediately going off of the agenda. And we've got Congressman John Sarbanes with us today. Since this is John's first time officially on the committee, I thought I'd give him a chance to introduce himself and give some brief remarks. John's a lame duck now, so he can say whatever he wants. So, John, the floor is yours. Have at it.
I appreciate that, Chris, but I won't let loose completely. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for your good work on this. Thank you to everybody who's part of the effort to assemble the best possible ideas to maximize the opportunity that this project presents. And I'm absolutely convinced that if this is done well, and I have every confidence that it will be, you're looking at a national model for how you assemble in one place all of the good things that can benefit a community and every generation of that community, how you tie it back to the history of that place with all the various dimensions that are represented there, and then pull that history in a positive way forward into the future as you make this a broad community resource. So it's very exciting what's happening there. I've looked at all the different committee charges, like the different pieces and facets that are being looked at. All of them are energizing from my standpoint. So consider me an avid supporter of this effort and someone who wants to be as much of a partner as I can during the next 14 months that I'm in Congress. But frankly, I expect that I'll be intersecting with this effort beyond that just because of my interest in it. As Chris knows, we're doing what we can to see if there's some federal resources that can be brought to the table here. If you read the paper or watch the news, you know that things in Washington are challenging pretty much every day. So we can't make any promises of what can be delivered on that front, but we're making our best effort there to help with the resource component of this. So with that, Chris, thank you for the opportunity to sit in and listen. I'm looking forward to hearing about all the good things that are happening there, and I yield back.
Great. Well, thank you, Congressman. And just on a personal note, John, it's great to have you join us. I really appreciate your support and your partnership over many years. But I'm glad you mentioned, even after your term ends, that you're planning to stay involved, because I wasn't going to let you ride off into the sunset. We're gonna keep you going. And as you mentioned, Congress is working like a well-oiled machine right now. So I'm sure you guys will absolutely get something through for us. I don't have any doubts. Seems like everyone's getting along and doing really great. So
yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that segue, we're going to jump back into our agenda, and we're going to have a new regular kind of top of the agenda item, which is going to be our project manager report. This will be an opportunity for Mike to kind of tell us what's new since the last time we met. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike so he can give his report.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for connecting with us today. The big major item that we've had recently and since the last meeting is getting the master plan consultant group, Design Collective, on board. They're with us today, and they're going to follow with a more information on their plan and their process. So I want to save as much time for their overview. But that's been the big major item recently, and there's been a big increase of activity on site, getting out there with them, getting them acquainted to the site, lots of tours, going in and out of all the building, not just the buildings, but the site, really, getting them access as much as they need so they can start gathering the information that they need in order to put together a good, master plan. A couple other capital projects on the site that we have going on at the same time. The Patient Cemetery Memorial That is moving forward. We met with the Friends Cemetery group a few weeks ago and went over the draft site plan for the plaza that surrounds the memorial, got their comments, and we're working to incorporate those and then meet with contractors to build the plaza and then the memorial to follow. So we're pushing that along as quickly as we can. There were a lot of investigations prior to the master plan consultant coming on board, investigating the structures, investigating the electrical system out there. We've also had recently kicked off RCAN-K to investigate the water and the wastewater facilities, those treatment plants, collection, distribution. They've been out there quite a bit the last few weeks, getting that all information gathered. But we're working to get that information to Design Collective, get it bundled, get it finished up into reports, meet with them, have meetings with those consultants we brought on board earlier and Design Collective to have good handoff meetings so that information is fed up to them. We've had a lot of tours, a lot of interest from the subcommittees. I had a tour for this committee several weeks ago. A lot of people just interested in getting themselves acquainted with the site. And when they go and talk to folks or other meetings, it's more physical to them when they talk about a specific building or that sort of thing. If they've been in it, they understand it better. So we've been trying to facilitate as many tours as we can for folks. Lastly, the Maryland Historic Trust reached out to us several months ago. They wanted to meet, sit down, and kind of talk and get an idea of what's happening out there. It was a little early, so we held off on that meeting. But now that we do have a good team on board with the Design Collective, their sub-consultants, we want to meet with them. So we're looking to set that up in the next couple of weeks. And that's all I have for project manager overview.
Great. Well, thanks, Mike, and thanks for setting up our next agenda item so well. We're going to move into the master plan update, and we've got our friends from Design Collective here. I think Cecily, you are going to take the lead, so I'll hand it over to you, and we'll see what you guys have.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all. Good afternoon. My name is Cecily Bedwell. I'm the part of the lead consultant team for the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. I've brought with me today several of our team members, and we'll let them introduce their team and scope. As we move through this presentation, I'll be covering the first two items, the project schedule and scope and the public engagement overview, and then turn it over to Matt and the team to go through a little bit more detail on each of the sub-consultants and their particular scope for this project. And then I'll wrap up with work to date and next steps. So for some of those on the steering committee and advisory committee, this is a little bit of a repeat, but for those that are new to this, I'll just let you know that Design Collective and our team, we're going to take a phased and progressive approach. Our aim is really to have a meaningful, inclusive, interactive community engagement strategy. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And really, we break our roles, our tasks that we were asked to do for this project into three phases. Phase one, which we're in now, is, as Michael says, data collection, assessment, existing conditions analysis. We've been on the site, we've been taking photos, walk through the wooded areas and the streams and around the wastewater treatment plant to the cemetery, really get, if you will, literally boots on the ground in many cases, and walking through the buildings, make that physical and real for us, as well as looking at all the background information that we have, that we know. So we've been getting a lot of that. And phase two is when we start to think about, okay, now we have a good handle on what the existing conditions are. We understand some of the constraints, whether those are natural, infrastructure related, traffic related, etc. We have a good understanding of that, and we move into visioning. What can this be? We know the community has given a lot of great feedback, as well as the county executive's office, setting up the town hall, which we participated in prior to even being engaged. So we know there are a lot of good ideas. Our role in phase 2, design collectives in particular, is to test those ideas, really see what those options are, what the pros and cons are, maybe what the conflicts are, and then give you good data analysis to evaluate those options. In phase 3, moving from phase 3 to phase 2 to 3, we'll start assembling the draft plan, narrowing down what the preferred options are, and finalize that in the final report. Looks like I'm not sure this is coming through. Let me just. Looks like my page is not coming through, or it's not advancing. Give me one moment. What you would be seeing on this page is community engagement. So barring this visual coming up, I'll talk through it. Let me just see if this will come up. Might have to move. I'm going to go to a backup plan here.
So Cecily, that happens with Adobe every once in a while.
Okay.
You might have to close it and start it back up.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me try one more time. If not, I have a backup plan, so we'll go to that if needed. I'm going to share screen instead this time and then switch back over. Yep. Okay. Backup plan. Here we go. Okay. So this is a little bit, let me close a few windows so everybody can see what's up on screen. Okay. So looking at the project schedule here.
Hey, Cecily, there's one more window. Oh, you got it. All good.
Yeah, sorry. There's a bit of delay. All right. So looking at the project schedule, and this is a little bit tentative, but as we move through it, it will refine. But you can see the first 4 tasks here are all about analysis. That will stretch through the first, 3.5 months roughly, and we'll have draft reports in January for the committees to review, as well as to inform what we hope is the first public workshop sometime mid to late January. These tasks also will span over the course of our 12-month schedule. So there'll be, obviously, once we have some ideas of the options, we'll be testing those against the infrastructure analysis or the traffic analysis or environmental impacts, historic cultural impacts. So those tasks do continue on, even though the main analysis of existing conditions is complete after January. As we move through, we have 4 documents to keep an eye on. Again, we're here in mid-November. Our interim report is that collection of analysis. Our interim report 2 is really looking at what combining those options into a report and some of the analysis based on those different options. Then we start to draft and finalize the master report as we go through. We are meeting with the steering committee and other committees and subcommittees throughout the process of that duration. So we don't list them all here. They're very numerous, but be assured we'll be in those subcommittee meetings and steering committee meetings and advisory committee meetings throughout. So public engagement, we'll again have that public workshop. We're still firming up a date with the county, but we hope that this is interactive. We'll bring an assessment of those existing conditions and share that knowledge with you all. We might also bring some precedent images and best practice knowledge with us, but we want it to be interactive. So we may sit around roundtables with you or at board stations and get the feedback from the community. Hey,
Cecily, can you say, is that being looked at for like a weekday evening, or is that like maybe a Saturday or Sunday event? Do you have a idea?
I would defer to Michael on that, but I'd love to hear ideas. Maybe that's something we can talk. We meet with the steering committee at 2 p.m. today, and maybe we can talk through that and get you a good answer.
Okay.
All right. And then public workshop 2, this is where we come back with the options and people are evaluating those. So I think this will be a really robust, interesting workshop where we're coming back with ideas and hearing feedback from the community and all stakeholders at that second meeting. Workshop 3, as we envision it, again, this is all tentative, but we imagine this more as an open house where things are fairly flushed out. We've gotten a good idea of the priorities, of the preferred options, And we're sharing how that has evolved into a draft report. There's still time to give feedback and input, but then we are basically polishing that into a final report, finishing out our 12-month scope. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about the project team and Design Collective's role.
Thanks, Cecily, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Matt D'Amico. Between Cecily and myself, we lead our planning and urban design team in our studio. I'm going to introduce our team briefly. It's an amazing team, a large set of experts that we think are perfectly tailored for this project, and I'll let each of them introduce themselves and what they're doing. Design Collective will be leading this effort and coordinating the work of all of our consultants, but in-house we have a pretty strong design team. I'm not going to go into detail, but we've got several architects with different areas of expertise that we're going to bring into the project as needed as we start testing ideas for the buildings, feasibility of the buildings, code conditions and those kinds of things for the buildings. We've heard lots of ideas about nonprofits and medical health, wellness, well-being, museum, those kinds of things. So our architects will help us test those. And then we've got planners and landscape architects on the team, Mackenzie and Brian, who will be looking more at the broader master plan for the whole 500 acres, looking at organization of uses, ball fields, circulation, parking, all those kinds of things. And then our sub-consultant team has 3 sets of firms. Dennis Carmichael, I'll let him introduce himself in a moment, but he's sort of a nationally recognized landscape architect and an expert park designer and planner. And we know that's going to be a big component of this. So we're super excited to have Dennis as part of this. RK&K will be leading, this utility analysis, infrastructure, traffic, transportation, they're out there. They've got a team out there right now doing natural resources inventory, looking at water and sewer. So that's going to be an important part of this. And then super excited to have Laura Hughes, her team at EHT Traceries, who will be focusing on the historic and cultural aspects of this, documenting existing conditions, and then helping us understand how do we preserve and celebrate, what's so important in terms of the history and the culture of the site and the buildings. So that's kind of our team. A little bit about Design Collective. We are a Baltimore-based firm. We also have an office in Chicago. We're about 80 people. You might know of some of our projects. That's the power plant in the upper right-hand corner in downtown Baltimore. We also did the can company in Baltimore, Tide Point in Baltimore, work in downtown Frederick, and currently we're working with Prince George's County on the Blue Line corridor. Excited to be able to share with you that we've been able to secure, as part of that vision plan, $450 million public investment for amphitheater, field house, market hall, etc. So our hope is that we're going to come up with a plan here that's equally exciting, that we're going to be able to find support for funding for lots of things happening in Crownsville. We are a design firm focused on planning, architecture, interior design, landscape architecture. So we're bringing all those disciplines in-house to the project. Our role, as Cecily mentioned, will be leading our team, project management. We'll be supporting all of our sub-consultants in task 1, helping with existing conditions, coordinating, getting out there, site visits, looking at best practices, doing research, which Cecily has mentioned, we've done quite a bit and learned an awful lot about the site and the building and its history. Task 4 would be some code analysis, looking at zoning, what kinds of uses are permitted or not permitted, and looking at the buildings in terms of building code. Buildings are going to probably need elevators and improved stairs and egress and those kinds of things. So kind of wrapping our heads around that in terms of what might be needed for the renovation of the buildings. You'll see all of us in all of the meetings, subcommittee meetings, the community meetings, public meetings, workshops. We'll have a lead role in all of that, and we're bringing the appropriate experts in our office, depending upon the meeting agenda. And then we'll be leading all of the submittals, as Cecily mentioned. There are 4 interim reports at different phases of the project. will be leading the efforts of all that and coordinating the content, much of which will be coming from our consultants as well. So as a summary of us, and I'm going to turn it over to Dennis from Carmichael Associates, chat a little bit about his firm and what his role is. Dennis?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry. And I realize you can't see me. The invitation, I couldn't get it to work on my computer, so I'm on my phone. I am a landscape architect with over 45 years of experience, and I worked with a major national firm called EDAW for most of that time period, and only recently formed my firm. In my career, I've worked all over the country, and I've worked on some sites that have had tragic histories. So I feel comfortable that we are going to be able to encapsulate in a respectful way the rich history of Crownsville. And we walk the site. We have come to learn the power of the cultural landscape that's there, but also the beauty of the natural landscape. And as case in point, a couple of projects I worked on, I did a park in downtown Chattanooga where we learned that the Trail of Tears, the forced march of the Cherokee tribe to Oklahoma, started right there. So we felt compelled to interpret that and tell that story in the landscape. I was also the designer for Centennial Olympic Park during the 1996 Olympics in downtown Atlanta. It's the one you recall where the bomb went off during the Olympics. And of course, we needed to do a memorial to that event, that horrible event in the phase 2 of that park. So one of the things that I'm going to be very interested in is helping Design Collective create a landscape that unifies the beauty of the cultural landscape, the potential of those beautiful historic buildings, and creating an elegant campus landscape that supports that and supports the new employees and workers and folks that will be inhabiting those buildings, but also to extend it out to the very rich and beautiful natural landscape, the fields, the woods, the valleys, the streams. It's really, really beautiful. And we want to make sure that everybody who goes there can come to appreciate all of those landscapes. So that will be of great interest to me.
Okay, we'll turn it over to RK&K to go through their firm overview and scope. Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Cecily. Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Krupinski, RK&K Engineers. We're the civil engineers working and supporting design, working with and supporting Design Collective on this effort. I'm a lead manager in our site development group, but we'll be supported by Rob Philippi, who is also on this call. RK&K, if you're not familiar with us, we are celebrating our centennial year this year. Are excited about that. It's actually wrapping up here in the following month. We've got about 1,300 employees up and down the East Coast, go out as far west as Colorado. But majority of our work is supporting clients, federal, state, local, like Anne Arundel County, and private in the Mid-Atlantic region. It's where Rob and I have most of our experience. Our headquarters is in Baltimore. And we're an engineering multidiscipline firm focused on some of those disciplines you see there. Large transportation group, and it includes surveying, geotechnical services, water resources, environmental and natural resources, as well. Construction management. We have a healthy community studio that focuses largely on projects centered around like municipal type projects. And then the land and site development group, which Rob and I are in, and then of course utility engineering. So our main role is going to focus on as Cecily mentioned at the beginning, and Matt had mentioned, on the traffic and utility infrastructure related to the master plan for the Crownsville site. We have our project scope outline here. Several of these tasks we're already off and running on, as was mentioned, but our first task that we're getting into is really kind of looking at the collecting existing conditions information that's going to help us develop a project base map for this effort. And that's going to get into collecting available records that focus on things like topography and natural resource overlays, utility information, all with the goal of giving us a sense of the site constraints that need to be considered as part of this master plan evaluation process. So we're kicking that off and working with Mike and his team on that. The second task that we had there was focused on the natural resource side of things, and so we've got crews that are out on site doing on-site observations to collect information to help us develop an understanding of the forest cover on site, preparing forest stand delineation plans, ultimately leading to what we refer to as a natural resource inventory. That'll talk about forest on site. It'll talk about what wetlands we believe are on site, also highlight some of the more sensitive waterways and things like that. Again, giving us a good overlay so that we can compare that to the proposed master plan options, which will be developed later, to get a sense for where are really the prime areas for us that to look at redeveloping this site. The third task, really the meat and potatoes from an engineering standpoint, it's our utility and infrastructure. So under this task, we're going to be looking at traffic information. So we're collecting traffic data, traffic records to get a sense for what's the existing conditions in the area. So again, that we can compare that to ultimately what the proposed program would be and get a sense for, are there going to be needs for mitigation off-site or on-site? What can we do to make sure that what's proposed from a traffic standpoint is successful? Also utilities, looking at utility infrastructure. We've got some pretty significant on-site systems, water, wastewater, that need to be evaluated to determine how can we perhaps integrate with those from a proposed master plan standpoint, and ultimately there develop a master plan utility composite of sorts that will help outline through what we think the extent of the utility network might need to be on site to support the proposed master plan options. And then also tied to the infrastructure side of things, we're going to be looking at stormwater management. So again, at this stage, we're looking at existing conditions to get a sense of what the existing land cover is out there and compare that to the development regulations for Arundel County so that we can then assess to what degree we think stormwater facilities might be needed to help protect the downstream water systems. So all that'll be part of that task 3. Task 5, so meetings, as Matt had mentioned, lots of meetings. We'll be providing support, providing updates along the way about these things that we're looking at, and of course, providing the technical documents to each of those submission milestones that Cecily had outlined at the beginning. And that's essentially RK&K's scope on this project.
Thank you, Rob. We'll turn it over to each Traceries now. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Dalyder, and I am a senior project manager at Traceries, and we're very excited to be able to contribute to this project and site. Traceries is a small women-owned business. We've been around for 45 years, and though we only have 16 employees, we actually work all over the country in almost every single aspect of preservation, whether it be tax credits or survey, adaptive reuse, preservation planning. But the projects on the screen here I want to focus on is that we actually have a lot of experience working with mental hospitals. The image on the top right is actually the Buffalo State Insane Asylum, and we've been working on that building for about 3 years. It's a very large site that, Buffalo and New York State have put a lot of money into, and we've been helping them with their context and, how do you rehabilitate these sites? A lot of times the issues are these buildings were designed to keep people in. So how do you adaptively reuse a building that is welcoming while respecting the history of what it was designed for? So we have experience in all of that. And the other one on here is that's a zoomed in of continuing treatment campus. We've been working on the St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C. since 2009, since they gave that land. Half went to the GSA and half went to the District of Columbia. And we actually work on both sides with planning and context and, interpretation. We executed the design guidelines for that site. So we have a lot of experience specifically working with hospitals and mental hospitals of how do we make that work in a modern era and make it welcoming while respecting the sensitive history of the site. We go to the next slide. So we will be involved in almost every aspect of this project. We have already started our survey and documentation of every single building. This is aided by the MIHP form that was done by Maryland a long time ago, and then they updated and executed a National Register nomination determination of eligibility. And so we will be taking all of those documents and surveying every single building on the site and just kind of giving our recommendations. What is the status of that? And then we'll also be present at all of the stakeholder meetings, because it's important to hear what the community wants to see out of this project, how they think the site should be respected. And then, we'll help coordinate with the master plan, moving forward. Different types of funding trigger different types of review. So we'll be able to outline all of that in the master plan of what's to be expected from MHT and consulting parties and other regulatory compliance that you may have. And then we'll help with the preservation planning and design guidelines and, how to best use these buildings to the county's benefit, but also respecting the architecture and the cultural significance of the site.
Thank you, Kim. And I'll wrap up briefly here to just talk about the next steps. This will advance. As the team mentioned, we have been out on site. Walking the site, making sure we understand the documentation, meeting with committees, subcommittees, really inventorying everything we can, as well as looking at good examples where this has been done before. Although this site is certainly unique, there are some great precedents and some best practice research that we are delving into and hope to share with you at the first community meeting. Beyond that, we've really tried to dig in to understand, and we'll need your help with this, to really understand what the determining features are of the site. Dennis, as he mentioned, it's critical to understand the history and the culture and the potential of this site and what gives this site its unique character defining features. And then as we move into phase 2, understand how we can leverage that and think of this as a memorial park moving forward and a benefit to the community. Beyond that, next steps are really to complete the existing conditions documentation, make sure we have that thorough base site that Rob mentioned with all known current conditions, what are the constraints, and in a layered fashion that we can dissect, if you will, meet with key stakeholders, including the Maryland Historic Trust that Michael mentioned, continue to meet, and then prep for workshop 1. And so we hope to see everyone out for that in mid to late January. And with that, I will stop sharing and turn it back over to you, Chris. Thank you.
That's great. Well, thanks, Cecily, and thanks to the whole team. To the committee, I know that was a lot, but we really wanted you to meet the consultants and understand their scopes because, I think this is an extraordinary effort, and I wanted everyone to appreciate not only the expertise of the consultants that we've got together, but also how massive their scopes are. So this is all part of the whole effort where we brought you together. We brought this A team of consultants together, And I think it's important for everyone to realize just how deep this whole initiative is. So just to keep us on track, I'm going to hold off on asking for any questions until the end of the meeting. We have one more presentation that I think will only be about 5 minutes or so and then we'll get to the subcommittee report outs. But next, we want to have Karen from DPW and her team kind of give us a little bit of introduction about everything that's hiding underground and all the utilities and infrastructure, which will be a really big deal going forward. So Karen, why don't you take it away?
All right, just quickly, everyone, your big stretch, because I'm sure we're getting a lot of information in a short period of time. Everyone can see the screen. Does that look okay? Okay. So Office of Central Services and Department of Public Works are partnering on this. I want to shout out to Susan Harold, who I think is on the Zoom meeting today. She's the director of Office of Central Services. Neither one of our departments could do anything here without the other. So we have a very close partner. Here's some of the folks that have been working on trying to make sense of what's going on there in terms of the whole facilities, and that's the Central Services and the DPW team there. So shared responsibility, just so you all understand, the Office of Central Services is managing all the facilities and the grounds. They're responsible for the budget to maintain the facilities and the grounds, including paying for any water or sewer costs that are contractual. DPW is overseeing the MES contract. We've contracted with a company called Maryland Environmental Service. It's a quasi-state agency that does water and wastewater plant operations. They're just operating the plants. There's a significant amount of infrastructure under the ground that they do not manage that DPW and Central Services is working on. That's all the water distribution and the sewer conveyance. So this may be hard to see, but this is a little map that's just pointing out the water treatment and wastewater treatment facilities, and RK&K just did this for us. So as you, all these little white boxes on the screen, if you can't read what they say, they are infrastructure having to do specifically with water and sewer. And I just want to point out that the wastewater facility down here, hopefully you can see where I'm pointing, it is a significant amount of green area, which are these spray fields, because it has a unique way of handling the wastewater treatment here. So it's taking up, when you drive through the hospital Memorial Park, you'll see these green fields and think, hey, that might make a great baseball field. Well, it's actually where wastewater has been treated wastewater is being sprayed onto the grass, and that significant amount of land on both sides of the road there. So let me go on. So who receives water and sewer service? This is a little map as well. It shows where they're all located. It's as far out as Fairfield Nursing Home, if you're familiar with the area, and Anne Arundel County Fairgrounds, as well as all the different facilities that are within the Crownsville Hospital property, including 100 Community Place, which is still a state facility. This is kind of listing out a lot of the things that we've done so far, and there's many, many more things to do. But we've assigned a full-time DPW team manager to oversee the MES contract. We learned pretty quickly on that we weren't sure we could 100% take word for word everything MES was telling us, so we felt that we needed a county person to oversee what they're doing there. So that's a DPW person. We're looking and continue to look at the sewer pipe condition. That involves doing what we call smoke testing, which kind of gives us a sense of, are the things connected? Are there leaks in the system? Which we're finding, yes, there are. Manhole inspection and CCT camera that goes down into the pipe so we can see the condition. We're finding a lot of blockages are in the sewer and water pipes. We've inspected the water plant and the wastewater plant. We've been installing water meters, one now at 100 Community Place. We're working on the one at Chrysalis House. We've properly abandoned 3 wells. I mean, I do want to point out that under the state, and I know some of you are state delegates, because they were not, this wasn't not an active hospital, they weren't doing what you would normally see being done to maintain water and sewer facilities. So what we have today is not to the standards that Anne Arundel County has for our water and sewer treatment. So things like they had wells that were supposed to be abandoned, no longer in use, and one of them had oil in them. Those things were not done when it was owned by the state, and we have to get them done to meet Maryland Department of the Environment requirements. So just to point that out, we currently have 2 wells that are in operation that are functional and working pretty well right now. We're doing survey and mapping of the water distribution system and the sewer system, which RK&K is helping with, and evaluating fire hydrant condition. We did find that the fire hydrants, there's 2 or 3 of them that are not working at all, and the water pressure is not high enough for adequate fire protection. So the fire department is aware of that. They have been aware. That's how it was when the state was there. And they're prepared to tanker if there were any fires at that location. Even more work's being done, which is flushing of the water pipes. We've added isolation valves that allows us to isolate the water system. So when we do have a break, we don't have to shut everybody out of water. We can isolate certain portions of the area there. We've established emergency power to operate the wells in the event of a power outage. We taking a county generator there. We're doing mowing and maintenance of the spray fields, repairing spray heads. So all that on that park-like land I told you, that's what's going on there. And repairing of water and sewer lines when they break. It's either DPW is doing the work or we're contracting out, depending on what the workload is and what the kind of break it is. And then, of course, cleaning the sewer lines. But that's only the beginning. There's much more work to be done there. Just to give you a sense of the cost, this is just what DPW spent so far, $57,000. This does not include the individual that's working there full time. It doesn't include any of our management or supervisory hours, any of the consulting we've done, any of the evaluation. It's purely labor and maintenance, like to repair something, to put in a valve, that kind of thing. And then the MES contract is rather expensive for water, over, almost $300,000, over $500,000 for wastewater. And then so far in like well abandonment and other contractual costs that Office of Central Services has paid, it's led up to almost $900,000 so far. And, those expenses continue to climb. I'm telling you this because I know water and sewer is not the sexiest thing you're going to be dealing with. And everyone wants to put in beautiful, trails and bike paths and historical renovations of the buildings. All that needs to be supported by water and sewer. And we need to have an adequate facility there. And just know that you've got a great team that is working and concerned about it so that you don't have to be. And of course, follow DPW on all of the different social media accounts. And I can answer questions if that's okay with Chris. I know he's got a tight schedule.
Well, thanks, Karen. I do want to make sure we get through the subcommittee reports, which I think will be pretty brief. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and have them, and then we'll have a general Q&A for the advisory committee members for anything that we've covered today. So let's get started on that, and we'll start off with infrastructure and Allison. And just as a reminder to everybody, our subcommittee chairs, if you can just keep this to a minute or two, give us the highlights and the latest and greatest, that would be perfect.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm Allison Taylor, Chair of the Infrastructure Subcommittee. Last month, we had Cecily give a presentation to our subcommittee, and Cecily, want to extend our thanks for that. It was a great presentation. We have also selected liaisons from our subcommittee to be liaisons to the other 3 subcommittees. We want to make sure whatever recommendations we're offering as it relates to infrastructure are aligned to the extent possible as what the other groups are doing. So I've reached out to the other chairs about that, and we hope those folks have connected with you. I'm done.
Very cool. And I love that liaison idea. I hope that other committees are doing that. The more we're all talking to each other, the better. So we'll have our subcommittees, we'll have all the consultants. It's going to be a lot. So that's fantastic. Next, we'll get an update for Rec and Parks Committee, subcommittee chair, Scotty Himes.
Hey, thank you. It's Scott Himes, by the way, Chris.
Scotty.
Always Scotty for you. Hey, thank you. We are very excited to actually be getting a tour on for tomorrow for this subcommittee is very excited about seeing the facilities and what the possibilities are. We have been examining the easement, knowing what our parameters are on that we'll be sharing on our next meeting. And you know, the feedback that we're hearing from the community and stuff that I've been hearing, it's all positive so far. So that's a good thing. So we're looking forward to the next steps. And I like the liaison idea. I think, and everybody, I'm sure we'll be doing the same sort of thing. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Himes. Delegate Schmidt has a quick question, I think.
Yes, thank you. Did I see either a soccer game or a rugby game that was out there this weekend? Are they currently having Recon Parks in the top field there?
Jessica, are you able to take that?
Yes, so Recreation and Parks permits those upper fields to a soccer organization. So you do see some games there. And then there's another field tucked down lower that we also have permitted use for practices.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I was surprised to see so many people out there this past weekend. I was in the area. Thank you.
Okay. I think next is our Cultural History Committee. And Jackie, I think you're up.
Oh, okay, here we go. Yes, our next subcommittee meeting will be today, but since the last advisory committee meeting, thanks to Jane Cox, a survey was developed so we can begin to look at the storyboards that we will be recommending for the Crownsville project. And excuse me, and we will be going over that data at our next meeting. So that's all I have for today.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. And then our final subcommittee is Health and Wellness. I believe Dr. Brown was traveling. So Jen, are you giving the update for us?
Yep. And it'll be quick. Our committee did not meet prior to this meeting. We're still struggling because we're such a large group to find a date that works for everybody. We're also looking then at other ways that we can engage members of the group outside of meetings so that we can kind of address that. I do just want to say that we have 3 new members that we're welcoming to the committee. Izzy, who's a member here of the overall advisory committee, has joined us. Dr. Celeste Seeger, she's a faculty member at the University of Maryland School of Nursing, and she's also a Crownsville resident. She has joined us, and Pam Brown with an E, our new executive director at Pope House, is also joining. So we'll have 2 Pam Browns as part of our subcommittee. Our next steps, I think Pam did report last month, is to identify overall the health and human services needs, some of the barriers that we expect, and if there are any gaps in services. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you. We're going to rename you the Committee of Pam Browns, but that's fantastic. Hannah, I know that you've been collecting the public comments, and we didn't get a large amount since the last meeting, but we do have some new ones. Can you summarize those real quick?
Yes, and I'll screen share just very quickly the document that I emailed out to committee members earlier this morning. So at the last meeting, you all received a big list of all of the public comments that we had received since creating the email address for public comments for the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. So I think moving forward, we'll just give you smaller summaries of what we've received in between each advisory committee meeting. So this is what you have here. At the top are listed the new items, suggestions for consideration, along with the subcommittee that they'll be referred to. And then we've also received some other comments, one related to volunteering for grounds upkeep, and several related to interest in participating in various subcommittees. So I guess I'll also just note, as Jen kind of mentioned, some of our subcommittees are getting quite large at this point, which is great. It's fantastic to have all of the interest and public participation. And we certainly want the subcommittees to have, diverse opinions and perspectives on the project. At some point, we may need to look at ways to cap certain subcommittees or find other ways for public participation, just to make sure that the subcommittees can still do their work in an efficient way.
Yep, absolutely. I know a few committees are at capacity already, so thank you for mentioning that. All right, before I turn it over to advisory committee questions, I did just want to note that the presentations that you saw today will be posted to our website. And I think we'll also maintain some general list of the public comments that are received. Maybe Hannah, your summary doc, we could post that up on the website as well. So that will be the hub of all the information. And we did a pretty good job getting through everything. We do have some time. So if there are advisory committee members that have a question on anything that was discussed today, we will take those now, and we'll start with Delegate Bagnell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trumbauer. And I just wanted to go back to the conversation about traffic and addressing the traffic needs and ensure that we're considering them in the context of the other events that are around that space, because obviously the traffic needs are quite different during the 9 weeks of the Renaissance Festival and the weekends with the fair and that week where the county fair and the Renaissance Festival are congruent.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. I'm sure the consultants are doing that. And I know that the county executive has expressed, his vision that we don't overload the community, with traffic. And so that's what we're trying to do, thread the needle, have the best possible use of the property without clogging up the roads all the time. So absolutely.
And I understand that there's something in the state constitution, I have to look at it again, around the 97 interchange there as well. So if there are efforts that the state needs to address, just make sure that we're liaisoning as quickly as possible.
Very good. Other advisory committee member questions?
Chris, it's
Congressman Sarbanes.
Yeah. I don't really have a question. I just want to congratulate the group. There's so many moving parts in this. And the first stage of things that are so massive when it comes to the undertaking can be ones that paralyze you because you just don't know where to start. So it's exciting to see that you've pushed through that initial stage where you're like, we have this amazing opportunity, but like there's a gazillion things that have to happen. The team of consultants and others that you've pulled together are clearly working well together and kind of singing off the same vision page, which is terrific. And then I know building the apparatus to make sure all the community engagement is as robust and rewarding for those who want to participate as it can possibly be. That's not easy either. So just congratulations on getting all of those different components in place. It's a huge enterprise. It really is, but it's exciting to see how quickly it has moved to this stage. There's timelines. There's focus on all of the different dimensions of it. And I'm excited for the process as it moves forward and want to stay very close to it. So thank you for that.
Very good. Well, thank you, Congressman, again for your support. And just as a reminder, any federal contributions can just be sent to 44 Calvert Street. No contribution is too big. As many zeros as you can manage would be great.
Okay. Message received.
Thanks. Because as large as this scope is, and as you mentioned, the tremendous opportunity we have, we know it ain't going to be cheap. So it's going to be a long investment and one that we're absolutely committed to doing right. And usually that means it's expensive. All right. Last call for advisory member questions. All right. Oh, Allison, are you raising your hand or is that just a hand on your shoulder? No,
sorry. I was scratching an itch.
Okay. All right. So I think what we're going to do, we don't have any members of the public that joined us this time, but again, if anyone is watching this live or at a later time, We can entertain questions and comments through the email and through the website portal that we have set up. And I've got a mind blank. So Hannah, can you remind or put on the record what that email address is for us?
So it's crownsville-park-comments@aacounty.org.
Fantastic. Excellent. And I'll let the committee know that what I believe we're teeing up for our December meeting is an overview of some of the rec and park opportunities and overview. So Jessica and her team, it's not official yet, but I think that's going to be what our December agenda is, update is, and we will send that around as soon as things are finalized. So with that, I think we're just about wrapped up, and we're within our hour time slot. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Last call for any comments or questions.
I can't believe there's no questions for water and sewer, especially sewer.
It's early, Karen. People are just getting warmed up. We've got many months ahead to grill you and your team. So I did like the maps that you showed, and we're also part of some of the consultants' presentation, and I'm excited that those will be posted as part of the presentation on the site. Delegate Schmidt?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick reminder before we end that Senator Dawn Guile and I are doing a town hall tonight at Baldwin Hall. I know a lot of members of this committee live close to that, and love to have you come out. 7 o'clock. Should run for about an hour, and either everyone's looking to get to the Ravens game or watch the Ravens game a little after 8. So we're going to keep it brief, 7 to 8, with Senator Guile and I tonight at Baldwin Hall.
Great. Well, thank you for that reminder. And with that, I will, on behalf of the county executive and the committee members and everybody, just wish everyone a good Thanksgiving. Safe and fun Thanksgiving, and we will see you all in December. What's the date, Hannah? Is it the 14th?
I believe it's the 14th, a Thursday.
Yeah, December 14th at noon, and we will be virtual again. So thank you all, and our meeting is now concluded.